talk to you. Let me put this up here. You ready?
Yeah, we ready. It's on.
Thank you for coming to be with me today. I really appreciate this time that we can spend together. And I am the outgoing president of UBC. My term will be up in February, and I'm so delighted about that because what it has happened to me last 4 years. We have 2-year terms. It has kind of tied up my hand because I as president of UBC, I had to speak as a voice for the group, and sometimes we had some ideological differences as regards to approaches, as regard even to the issues. There are a lot of ministers in town, which is my colleague sad to say, are not informed. And they choose not to be informed because they choose not to participate and put their ear to the ground and hear what the street is saying. My primary responsibility, or minister's primary responsibility, is to be prophetic. Our responsibility is to speak truth to power. That's what we call to do, and this is not a model that we have created. It is a model that has been handed to us through the ancient ages. Prophets of old were summoned by government leaders and asked the question, is there a word from the Lord?
Right.
And even if they were not summoned, when God gave them a word, they approached the authorities and said, this is the word. So what I want to talk about today is my 28 years as a faith-based leader in the life of this community, the evolution, as well as my analysis of our future of Mount Vernon if we continue in the vein that we're headed.
I want to ask you one question dealing with what you already said.
Yes.
One of my old pastors, when I was in Georgia for a while, he said, a church that does not positively impact its community is a wasted piece of real estate. We've gone from the days of, having those meetings where we galvanize the community to, we've gone away from that. And with so many going on, the problem a lot have is that a lot of the black preachers are absent.
Well, let me help you with this. The way you judge the relevance and the value of any local congregation, if they're closed, will they be missed? That's the measure by which I tell friendship. I said, friendship, if we close our doors, will this community miss us? That's the type of impact a church need to have in the life of this community. That if they ever close their doors, somebody can say, we missed them because of the impact. Now, there's a couple of dynamics that's being played here. A lot of ministers feel that they're not called to social justice. They fail to look at the liberation of Jesus Christ and his gospel. That Jesus was not just a spiritual man, but he focused on the holistic need of mankind.
Absolutely.
Body, soul, and spirit. There are a whole lot of preachers who are inspirational but lack information. They're wonderful men and women. I don't dismiss them, but I don't think they understand the totality of when Jesus said that he was anointed to preach the gospel. They think their anointing is just restricted to preaching the gospel, when Jesus said to heal the sick, to liberate the poor, to give sight to the blind. That when he said give sight to the blind, that can be taken literally or figuratively.
Right.
Literally, you can help people who are blinded physically, but there's a lot of people who are blind, who can see but still blind.
Absolutely.
And Reverend Bishop Darren Moore, who's a son of our community, just recently preached in Charleston, South Carolina, at the big national black conference of main denomination. He talks about how the church have lost its voice.
That's
How the traditional African American church have lost its voice. Let's revisit how powerful the church was.
Right.
In the 60s, we could not organize in civic centers.
Right.
We could not organize in public squares. But where we organized was in the basements of churches. And then we went to the sanctuary to provide the inspiration to propel us to move forward. And we sung the song, "We shall overcome. We shall not be moved." Sad to say, my brother, that we have more education now than we ever had. We have more jobs, opportunities for African Americans than we ever had. We own more than we ever, in some instance, a percentage of us own more. But with all the resources that we have, we've done less. More universities, more black colleges that was built by churches and built by collecting nickels and dimes, historical black colleges and universities, more of them are closing than are opening.
Absolutely.
More black churches, believe it or not, are closing or filing for bankruptcy or foreclosed on than ever before. Because we've shifted our focus from being God conscious to being personality driven. And therefore, I believe Mount Vernon suffers with a prophetic voice, because there is no direct line of separation between state and church. You know, the forefathers understood that the government was never meant to establish churches, but they also understood the church was never meant to be precluded from the government.
Right.
That's what I did my dissertation in that. When you hear politicians when they want to humble preachers down, all the separation of state and church, they don't understand the establishment clause that was created was never created to prohibit the involvement of the social, of the moral consciousness of the church to influence policy. But what was prohibited? For the government itself to establish or to aid any religion, that all religion should have a sense to exist with equality without the interference of government. Our responsibility, as I said, is to speak truth to power. Now, we've always had conflict in Mount Vernon. From the time I came here when Blackwood, the first African American mayor in the state of New York, was elected in Mount Vernon, the first. Throughout New York, everybody talking about how wonderful New York and how liberal New York is. But it was in the late 80s that New York had one African American mayor that came from Mount Vernon. And so I came here when he Mayor Blackwood was, and there was a sense of pride. And there was other groups that was in charge, the Italians was in charge, but they knew that it was a new day. And Blackwood understood that black folks now must be included in major appointments in city government. I talked to Ernie Davis, who's iconic in this historian of our community, said when he came to Mount Vernon under Petrillo administration, there was only 2 blacks in City Hall. That was him and the person who cleaned up the place.
I heard him say that.
That was 2 blacks. 2. So the evolution was that black folks did something that no other municipality or city in the state of New York could do until Mount Vernon did. And that was elect a black man. And when I came to the sense of pride, and then after that happened, Blackwood understood his role and he stepped aside. And Ernie Davis became our man. And then we began to see develop. But there was conflict. There was conflict in ideologies, there was conflicts in an approach of how things ought to be done, but black folks came together to understand that we can now self-govern ourselves with people that look like us, that understand our culture, that understand our struggle. You understand? And the church was on board. The church helped make that happen. I'm so fond of the late Reverend Dr. Richard Dixon,
Yes.
the late Reverend Belleville Jackson, Reverend Richardson, Reverend Fowler, those men that were here. Henry Grant was just leaving out when I was coming in. There was a turmoil at Unity, so he was leaving out. But it was those men that was pillars of the community, of the African American, and they spoke as one voice.
Right.
Let me tell you how they spoke. Reverend Dixon always was charismatic and the older man, so he would embrace Reverend Richardson, because Reverend Richardson was a great orator and articulated, and so Richardson became the spokesperson of the group. That's how when I came in, Bishop Curtis Brown was the president of UBC, and for whatever reason, in our group, because we was having a struggle with the Board of Education, Dr. Patella era, and that all came about because there was a refusal of the ICA and other people of other ethnic groups that refused to be inclusive of multiculturalism.
Right.
That's how the whole movement started, because their direct refusal of being inclusive, and Dr. Richardson called it out. Said this is the apartheid of New York, and the churches and the people, we all rallied together to bring about a change. Now we reflect on history.
So how do we get from there to here?
We got to where we are is because the disengagement of black people with each other. That we became to a point in blackness in Mount Vernon that we have arrived, we're in charge, and it's going to stay this way. Not knowing that there were people who was emerging as Uncle Tom, willing to sell us out to a broader community. You understand what I'm talking about? They were willing to sell us out.
Right. We've had that through Black history. We've always had that.
We had it through Black history, and then, sad to say, we dropped the ball as a clergy group because we felt like we should micromanage, that our job was to liberate and to place competent people in there that had pure motives. We were fooled. We were fooled.
Right.
We were tricked. We were sold an image of people who had not the heart for our community. Now, where are we at now? Where we are now? We have there's a new face that have come on to Mount Vernon. We lost some of our key players in the clergy. The death of Dr. Dixon, the death of Dr. Belleville Jackson, the death of John Fowler, the death of Curtis Brown. These were key players that understood the evolution. I was fortunate to live among them, to learn and glean from them. But this new crop of preachers that come into our community have no reference, have no reference of our struggle. They have the reference of the context from which they come from, but they have no reference. So therefore, it's easy for them to collaborate with people who are very deceptive. There's a great deal of deception that I've been deceived. I've been deceived. I've been deceived. You know? We was hoodwinked. We've been tricked. The FBI created an image of Mayor Davis that was not true. And we bought it. Me personally, other ministers bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. Come to find out they had nothing. Mm-hmm. Here's a black man born out of black experience, come out of the struggle of civil rights, understood his blackness and understood the system. The broader culture and its system came in and hoodwinked us. And that's where the evolution of the downfall of our community began to happen. It happened when we permitted the broader community to determine that our leader, who've gone through the struggle, who understand blackness, when we allowed them to discredit him, and we believed it.
Let me ask you a question and play devil's advocate. Like you talked about how great Mayor Blackwood was, but then he moved on. He got to a point where he moved on and let someone else take
He passed the baton.
Right. Some felt that Ernie Davis, like Muhammad Ali, just held on to a little too long.
Well, let me say something. Hindsight, I was one of those proponents. But I didn't know what I know now. He knew what we didn't know. He was articulating it, but we wasn't listening. We was hearing it, but we wasn't listening. We were just thinking, oh, there he go, with a lot of jittery and just running off. But he was an undeclared prophet. He said to us, he said, all right, y'all ain't gonna have it long the way y'all keep going. He kept saying that. He said, y'all not gonna have the power long. Well, little did he know in his lifetime that he would see the dismantling of what he worked so hard, and other people who preceded him, who sleeping in the silent city, worked so hard that this will be a city governed by black people who would be intelligent enough to provide public safety, intelligent enough to provide a quality way of life, and to give our children a decent education. That's long been our dream. Our dream has never been for it to be self-centered and self-motivated. That's never been the dream of the collective community. We are not selfish or selfish. And the day you see people with their agendas that are self-centered and self-driven, when you can't have collaboration of working together, there's no common, and they're all in the same party. I can see we had a Republican and Democrat. I can see there'd be ideological differences.
We got Democrats against Democrats. Yeah.
That don't make sense to me.
And black Democrats against black Democrats. It's not even black and white.
Because many of them, not all of them, many of them are operating on an agenda that is self-centered and self-driven. And it's not for the betterment of the advancement of people of color.
Well, let me ask you this now.
And black preachers got to call it as they see it.
All right. So a lot of people talk about what is the problem and how do we move on from here? How do we recover? Where do we need to?
See, I'm issue oriented. I'm not personality oriented.
Right.
See, I have as a human being, I think Richard Thomas was a nice man. He got tremendous skill sets and promises. Mm-hmm. I just don't agree with his policies and procedures over the last year of what I've seen.
Absolutely.
So we need to, and I think a lot of people, passion is driven in the wrong direction.
Absolutely.
The wrong direction is that they're attacking the personality, whether attacking the issue, and everybody got friends. Mm-hmm. You attack my friend, I'm gonna get you. Right. But if you attack issues related to my friends, well, he ain't attacking you, he just don't agree with your approaches, agree with your policies.
Right.
I think politics have been reduced now down to people attacking individual personality and the integrity of one statement. There was time that you could believe everything somebody said. Now you better check it, and you better check it twice. I don't know where that come from. And then another problem too is that many of Mount Vernonites and many people have left the church. You know, we had a prayer vigil the other day, and over half, most of the people out there were non-church. The street ain't in the church. We still have the old heads, but the street is not in the church. Therefore, their moral consciousness is not being challenged.
Is the church in the street?
There are some who's out there in the street because the street is not in the church. The street have no respect for those who's out there. And let me go a little further. The street is so clever that they know that there's rift among the clergy that they play one clergy over another. And they place in front of many clergy a carrot dingling in front of them, and that clergy person don't understand that as they dingle the carrot in front of them, they are dragging them along, dingling the carrot. As they reach out for the carrot, they never get the carrot because they can't give you the carrot.
Right.
That's right.
They promise you stuff that they can't deliver. They can't give you no building. They can't give you funding, public funding, without you going through a RFP. And if you don't go through a RFP, request for proposal, and you get caught, you're going to jail. And why would you want that money if you don't have the infrastructure within your church? Financial infrastructure. If you don't have a CPA taking care of your books. If you don't pay taxes on your salary, pastor, on the salary of those who work there, the janitor. This stifling day is over with. The bookkeeper. Anybody get paid, you got to reduce to them payroll taxes and all that stuff. So why set yourself up? So you get jealous at people who have their business acceptable to what is mandated for not-for-profits. You get jealous at us that we report all our stuff to New York State Charity every year, that we have a CBA report. So therefore, the government said to you, you got your stuff in order. Here's a public dollars to assist you because you are grassroots. This is, New York State is the only state that have not really embraced the faith-based initiative. Well, the phrase, but most public social services that's done in most church have a component in which the faith base provides the resources. Why? Because they right at grassroots and it cut out all the bureaucracy.
But sometimes it seems like with some of the bigger churches, as the churches get bigger, the bureaucracy and the politics get into the church.
Yeah, sad because politicians are driven by numbers. And what's sad about, and you know it in Mount Vernon, that the larger place where people congregate doesn't mean that those are voting peoples in Mount Vernon.
Absolutely.
So they go into a big forum to be seen, hoping that those people will pass their message on. When the places where they should go is where the community people comes and worship because they're connected with the community.
Let me changing lanes a little bit. You know, I see, you know, you do a lot of stuff here, you know, for the kids, and you got the after school, and you got the daycare. Would you like to speak on this rash of violence we had going on lately? I mean, we've had, in 12 days, we had 4 shootings and 1 stabbing.
Let me say this.
Around the holidays.
Let me tell you this. The problem with where we are now, and we've been here before, and we should have learned. On the Mayor Davis, we had a large crime. But they learned. And how did they learn? They put in place police policy. See, right now we don't have a commissioner. And they said in the budget they defunded the line, which was absurd. And then they tell us The council tell us, well, the money's in the reserve, and when the mayor comes, then we put the monies there to fund the commissioner. Okay, we're gonna see how that works. But the bigger problem is that we do not have a comprehensive police policy. They started working on my frat brother, retired detective Tim Mitchell, and Sergeant Carpenter was going around the community selling this wonderful plan, the 21st Century Plan. Mm-hmm. It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. We also have Deaquick Falkers and Sinkley, iconic Miss Wynn, Frances Wynn, who trying to bring the Brothers Keeper programs. But we don't have the administration sitting down, giving us a comprehensive plan of how policing ought to be done. Community policing that need to be done, which the police develop relationships with the community and the community stakeholders. Right. Not just the community, I'm talking about the community stakeholders. Right. The people whom the community come to drop off names and tell us the real story, what's going on. Right. There's no relationship like that. There's a disconnect. In our community, we need police policy that when outsiders come here, the word is sent before they come. You come to Mount Vernon, your tail gonna be locked up, and you're going upstate for a long time. We don't have that fear. Even people say, well, if our children in Mount Vernon are the ones who committed the crime, sad to say, they have to be an example. Gun violence, and that's a big issue that's confronting the United States of America. And then because we say that we are urban center, which we more like a big town than an urban center, but we border Bronx. Right. So we get the influx of people in the Bronx who lives here, who sleeps here but don't live here, who may commit their crimes here and go back to live in the Bronx. But we gotta be, if we have a police policy, they will understand, I'm not going across there. And let me say how that culture, and the police policy will bring about a different culture. We got police officers that don't live in our community, so they don't have invested interests of public safety in our community. We had and I want to say I don't agree with everything with previous administration. We had a previous administration that didn't believe in hiring many Mount Vernon residents to police themselves, because they felt if I hired them, then they may allow the thugs to get away. How asinine could that be? Would you jeopardize your job and jeopardize your shield? So I'm saying some of this stuff we have played into to get where we are. But right now it's at the worst. And I don't see no solution in sight. When you got the people meeting and the council and the mayor not meeting to resolve the issue, you got a problem. The pastors are meeting to come up with a strategy to present to the administration, to present to the council. We got clusters of groups throughout the community, which is wonderful, that are meeting to address how can we resolve this issue. But then you ain't got the mayor or the council talking to each other. The ones who can make it happen ain't even talking to each other. Therefore, politics now and policy is being shaped by the people. Hopefully, the administration and the legislators of our city will embrace it. But that's not a guarantee. And the reason why not a guarantee, because now we are entering into a political season. Do you not know the majority of your council person will be elected in September? The people that we elect this year will have the capacity to make it happen or to keep us in gridlock. And the community need to know that. You're going to stick with the three that you have. And this mayor, I mean, right now, a lot of alleged things been dead. This way, he's the mayor. And have gridlock. Or you're going to decide to oust this three and get three new people. And hopefully, the gridlock and stalemate will be ended. That's what they did in the United States of America. I mean, they had gridlock. When Obama went in, he had both the House and the Senate for 2 years. Then 2010, the American people said, oh, we're going to put brakes on this. The size of government and spending is getting big. The bailout was too much. The Obamacare, we don't like this. So they flipped the Congress and flipped the Senate. And then after 2008, 2016, now they flip who's going to be in the White House. So black folks right now should get together because we have no alternative. We got a Congress that's Republic. We got a Senate that's Republic. We got a billionaire Republic president incoming that have stacked his whole administration with billionaires. And billionaires rich have always exploited the poor. That's what Jesus told the rich man. He said, how can I get, Jesus said it's so difficult for a rich man to get in the kingdom. He couldn't even get in the needle.
The eye of the needle, yeah.
That's how difficult, because guess what? They only think about exploiting the poor. Now let me tell you this. That's what's wrong with Mount Vernon. We got some rich donors. They ain't interested in building our community. They interested in enriching themselves. Why do people open their eyes up? Certain people are just figureheads. There are people behind that's figuring out ways how to tackle and get part of the $50 million. So how much is the budget? Over 50 what? What's the city budget?
Like 108 million.
It's almost 100. I think it's like 100 million.
Huh?
Like 108 million.
About 100, maybe close to $100 million. They trying to figure out how to get that. Because it's difficult for them to get their hands on that $250,000 school board now. Years ago, they used to control that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we control that.
So what's next?
I think that you and others like you who knows how to navigate social media have the responsibility to get the issues out. If you have a responsibility to interview pastors and know their heart, to see if they really gonna speak truth to power, or they're self-centered or self-motivated. Are they willing to take the church outside and have the church without walls? And I think that we need to begin the process, and I want to work with you to start putting the pressure on. If good people remain silent, evil will always prevail.
Absolutely.
Now, everybody may not have the same tactics. You need some that have diplomacy.
Right.
And you need some that's radical.
Right.
The radical folks can't say because I use diplomacy that I'm wrong. The ultimate is, what's the end to this all? And the end to this all for me is to see that the quality of life be lifted for our people. Now let me say this, and I've said this the other night at the statutory meeting. Mount Vernon been good to me. I was called to Mount Vernon by this congregation. It was Little Friendship, now Friendship Free Will Baptist Church. 28 years ago, I came to Mount Vernon. I came here with a wife and a 6-month-old baby. My children was educated in the Mount Vernon school system. They began at Milestone, then we put them in Pennington, went to A.B. Davis, to high school. They left there. My daughter went to Cheney University. Then she graduated from Manhattanville. She's now elementary special education teacher with tenure in New York City. My son did likewise. He went to Westchester University in PA, football scholarship, and did well. Then came back to our community, went to Iona, got an MBA degree. He's down in D.C. working at the headquarters there at the Postal in business management. So Mount Vernon been good to me. I bought a home. I've done well in Mount Vernon. So I'm not one of the proponents that said Mount Vernon is so bad. And those days, you know, some people said, you know, the days of old, that those days was no good and we got to move forward. Well, there were some good days and there were some good principles. I know everything changed and must be modified and some things have to be deleted, but not all was bad. Because I did well, and there's countless successful stories. I met there the deputy controller. He's a Mount Vernonite, and he's a lawyer. I met another guy who lives in New Jersey. Him and I are supposed to be getting together. He's a spine surgeon. I mean, and these were Mount Vernon children who came through Mount Vernon school, didn't go to private school. They went to Mount Vernon school system. So that's all is not bad in Mount Vernon. Mm-hmm. There's some bad people. Mm-hmm. There's some bad things. Mm-hmm. There's some bad practices. There's some bad policies. But all is not bad in Mount Vernon. We need to take the good and embellish the good. And that which is bad, we need to eradicate. And I think that we can do that. And the first thing is that we need to ask the current administration if you're going to lead or get off the pot. If you're going to build consensus, because they ain't going to have it all your way. Or not. That's what democracy is. Democracy is not dictatorship. We build consensus. And then after we build consensus, we move on. We don't. Once I vote on something, for instance, I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but he's the president of the United States. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to get out there and say he's not my president. That's absurd. The people that spoken, the majority rule. Mm-hmm. We got to move on. We got to work with it. So if these are the council persons that the people have determined, and have determined you or she as the mayor, whoever it may be, you got to find common ground. We call it the common table. The communion is the common table where all of us come together with our own different ethnic backgrounds and our different perspectives on life and culture. We come together on common ground, common table, and find common ground by which we can work. And there's always common ground some way if you don't come there with a preconceived idea and determination that it got to be your way or the highway. You understand what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
And that's what got to happen. And the citizens of Mount Vernon must insist that it happens. And if it don't happen, we must use the power of our vote to get rid of the people who hinder the progress of our city.
And that goes into my last question in closing. For the citizens that's watching this, for the residents, like, what can we do? What can they do?
The mayor says something, I don't believe he understands what he's saying. The word is engagement. You cannot afford at this time, this is a critical juncture, we're at a crossroad in the city of Mount Vernon, not to be involved. You cannot afford not to pull your council person aside, to call your mayor's office, to articulate your views. You cannot afford not to show up to council meeting where there are major decisions and discussions that are occurring. You cannot afford not to vote. You got to be engaged. You got to do what I do. I gather all information from all different outlets. I told you social media is so powerful. You know what I mean? You can't dismiss social media and some things. But you gather all information and you begin to process the information. Come with an open mind. Don't come there with no preconceived idea. He's wrong, she's wrong. Come with an open mind. Get the facts. Get the facts. Don't get a sound bite. We had enough sound bite. We're some of the most laziest people in getting facts. I got the facts. They talking about, and it's sad to politicize the death of a 13-year-old child. That perhaps, if we had more police officers, this child would have not died. Well, that may be true, may not be true. Likelihood is not true because we people of faith know that our days are determined. So Lord, teach us the number of our days that we may apply wisdom. But what is a fact? That on New Year's Eve, there was 8 police officers assigned to 4 square miles on that tour day of 70,000 residents. That's a fact. That have to do with police policy and management. That police officers are calling out. So if something major went on, we had to call from other municipalities to come to police our city, and the first thing they're gonna do, pull out their guns and fire and ask questions later. That's policy. That's policy. That's policy. Let's talk about policy. Let's talk about why it's taking this administration so long to get a police commissioner. They said they vetting. How long can you vet? Let's talk about policy. Let's talk about why is it that the chief of police, all right, what is his role? The captain, what is their role? What are they telling the police officers in roll call? What are they telling about the hot spots? We saw on national TV that when the 36-year-old business owner was shot, that the bouncer was having an altercation with the man who shot him. Police drives up, instead of there getting themselves involved, they looking to see what the outcome gonna be. He done tossed the gun away. That's policy. That's procedure. Come on, these are the issues that we focus on. It ain't about a man or about a woman. We can elect them in and we can elect them out. It's about policy and procedures that they bring. And when they don't bring the policy and procedure to help our people, that's when we should be enraged like we are. Hear me, ain't got nothing to do with Mr. Thomas. God bless him. It's about policy and procedures.
Absolutely.
And you can't blame the council. You're the mayor of this city.
Absolutely. With that, we thank you for your time,
And I thank you for coming and talking to me. I hope we can do this more often. And I ain't trying to push nothing, but build a community.
absolutely.
Thank you. How's that interview?